Emily Carter returned to Maple Street on a cool autumn evening, the kind where the sky felt low and the air smelled like rain and leaves. Emily parked the car, sat for a moment, and looked at the house. It felt smaller than she remembered, but heavier too, like it was holding its breath. Before she reached the porch, the door opened. Michael Reynolds stood there, one hand on the frame, his face calm but tired. He was older now. The years had added gray to his hair and lines near his eyes, but his posture was the same. "Steady, careful, Emily," he said. "Hi, Michael." They stood there for a second too long. Then he stepped aside and let her in. The door closed softly behind her, and the sound echoed more than she expected. Inside, old books, coffee. Emily felt like she had walked into a memory that did not fully belong to her anymore. She took off her coat and followed Michael inside. Her mother was upstairs, sleeping. When she woke, she smiled and reached for Emily's hand. Emily promised she would help with everything. After a while, Linda drifted. Their conversation ended there. Felt enough. The next morning came quickly. Emily woke early, the old sounds of the house pulling her from sleep. She dressed and went downstairs. Michael was already awake, reading at the table. He nodded when he saw her. Coffee brewed. A toast popped. Small talk filled the space. The weather. The road conditions. Linda's doctor. Nothing personal. Nothing. Deep. Still, Emily felt a quiet tension she could not explain. Days moved fast. He worked from home, spent time checking on Linda, and kept the house running smoothly. They crossed paths often, but never lingered. Emily noticed him in small ways. How he always lowered his voice near Linda's room. How he carried himself like someone who did not want to be a burden. How he listened more than he spoke. She told herself she was only noticing because she was older now. One afternoon, while Linda slept, Emily found a box of old photos in the living room. She sat on the floor and flipped through them. Birthday parties, family trips. Her father's face smiling in a way that hurt to see. Emily closed the box quickly, her chest tight. "I keep those here," Michael said from behind her. She looked up, startled. "I didn't hear you. I didn't mean to scare you. It's okay." He pointed to the box. Michael nodded and walked away. The moment stayed with her longer than she expected. That night, Emily could not sleep. The house felt too quiet. Her thoughts felt too loud. She finally got up and went to the kitchen for water. The lights were low. Michael sat at the table, holding a mug, staring at the window. "Oh," Emily said. "I thought I was the only—" She poured water and leaned against the counter. For a while, neither spoke. Then he asked about her job. Told him about Boston, the long hours, the small apartment, the feeling of always rushing somewhere. "You sound tired," he said. "I am," she admitted. He nodded, as if he understood more than she had said. They talked quietly. About work, about the town, about how strange it felt to come back after so many years. The conversation flowed. Then Michael spoke again, slower this time. "I worry about Linda." Emily looked at him. She's strong. She had not expected him to notice. They sat in silence after that, not uncomfortable, just full. When Emily went upstairs, she felt restless. She lay awake, replaying the conversation in her mind, unsure why it mattered so much. The next day, she avoided him. She stayed busy with her mother. She left the house when she could. She reminded herself why she was there. Still, the quiet moments found her. A few days later, Emily burned dinner. Smoke filled the kitchen. She opened windows while laughing at herself. "You always hated cooking," he said. "Some things never change," she replied. They laughed together. The sound surprised them both. Emily noticed how easy it felt to be around him. That scared her. They needed her back sooner than expected. But something tightened in her chest. That evening, rain began to fall. Emily stood by the window, watching the street blur. Michael joined her, stopping a few steps away. "You're I'm glad you came, he added. Emily nodded. Me too. The rain grew heavier. I should check on Linda, Michael said after a moment. He walked away. Emily stayed by the window, her reflection staring back at her, unsure of what she was feeling or why it felt so strong. Sorting memories. She realized something had shifted inside her during her time there. Not because of the house, because of the door that opened when she arrived. And because of what she felt stirring inside her, whether she wanted it to or not. Emily returned to Boston with a suitcase heavier than she expected, full not just of clothes but of feelings she could not name. The plane ride was quiet, her thoughts tangled. She replayed the last week at her mother's house over and over. The conversations with Michael, the small smiles, the way he listened without judgment, the quiet intensity in his eyes, scared her how much it lingered. She told herself it was over. That distance would erase it. But the memory of that rainstorm, the way he had stood a few steps away from her, remained vivid. Back in her apartment, life resumed its usual pace. Work deadlines, commuting, phone calls, errands, everything kept her busy. Yet at night, when the apartment was silent and the city lights blurred against the window, she would find herself thinking about him. She tried to rationalize it. He was her stepfather. She was an adult now, and life had changed. But she couldn't stop the pull of memory. She remembered his quiet voice, his patience. The way he seemed to see her without needing to be told who she was. A week passed. Then, 2. Emily called her mother every day. Linda's voice was cheerful but tired, always grateful for her daughter's help. Michael would sometimes answer the phone too. And each time Emily's heart raced, though they spoke only about ordinary things. He would ask how the city was, if she was eating enough, if work wasn't too stressful. She tried to keep her responses simple, casual. Still, there was a warmth in his words, a subtle attention that made her feel seen in ways she hadn't in years. One evening, Emily sat at her desk at home staring at a blank screen. She had a report to write, but her mind kept drifting back to the Vermont house. She could almost feel the smell of rain and old wood, hear the quiet creak of the stairs, see the reflection of Michael's eyes in the window. She realized she missed. More than the house, she missed the moments they had shared. She missed the unspoken understanding between them. That realization made her uneasy, almost guilty. She reminded herself repeatedly, nothing happened. Nothing physical. But the emotional closeness, the quiet connection, had changed something inside her. The following weekend, Emily's mother called, telling her the recovery was going well and that she might be ready for a short trip outside the house. Emily felt a pull in her chest she could not explain. She wanted to go back, but she hesitated. Would it be foolish, dangerous? Was it simply a longing she couldn't ignore? She spent hours debating herself, pacing the apartment, imagining herself back in that quiet kitchen, the storm outside, and Michael standing nearby. Finally, she booked a flight. She told herself it was for her mother, nothing else. Down, she knew it was also for herself, to face what she had left unresolved. She packed light, careful not to overthink. But every item she placed in her suitcase carried a memory of the house. Of the past week, of Michael's quiet presence. Emily arrived in Vermont on a Friday afternoon. The air was crisp, the leaves turning gold and red. The house looked the same as she remembered. She stepped onto the porch and paused, breathing in the familiar scent of home. The door opened almost immediately, and Michael was there. Older, yes, but unchanged in ways that mattered. He smiled politely, his eyes reflecting something she could not yet name. "You're back sooner than expected," he said, a note of surprise in his voice. "I wanted to check on Mom," Emily replied, "and I wanted to see how things are." He nodded, stepping aside. "Come in." Inside, the house felt alive again. Linda was upstairs, moving about slowly, happier and steadier. Emily noticed small details. The sunlight through the kitchen window, the hum of the refrigerator, the way the floorboards creaked under her feet. Everything seemed familiar, yet slightly different, as if the house had been holding its breath. For her return, the evening passed with dinner, light conversation, and laughter. Emily noticed Michael more than before, not consciously, but in the way he moved, the way he listened, the small gestures of care he offered. He helped clear the secret, like clear the dishes without being asked. He asked her about Boston, about her life, about her work. She felt herself relaxing around him. The tension from her previous visit replaced by a quiet awareness of his presence. Later that night, the rain began again, soft at first, then heavy. Emily sat by the window, watching it streak down the glass. The room smelled of warm bread and rain. Michael appeared behind her, quietly, without startling her. "You always loved the rain," he said. Emily turned. "I guess I still do." They stood in silence for a moment, the storm outside mirroring the weight inside the room. No one touched. No one spoke more than necessary. And yet, the air between them vibrated with unspoken words and feelings that had grown over time. Emily realized again how much she had missed this, the quiet connection, the understanding that needed no explanation. "I didn't think I'd see you again so soon," Michael said finally. "I couldn't stay away," Emily admitted softly. She hated that it sounded more personal than it should. She quickly added, "I just wanted to check on Mom." He nodded, understanding the words while reading what was left unsaid. "I know." The night grew darker, the storm louder. Emily felt a strange mixture of comfort and tension. She wanted to linger, to prolong this moment, but a sense of responsibility pulled her back. Linda was upstairs, and nothing should cross the line. Yet the emotional closeness between them had already shifted, subtly but irreversibly, in the following days. Emily helped her mother settle into her improved routine. She cooked, cleaned, and organized things for her. Michael continued. His quiet presence, working at home, keeping an eye on the household, and offering occasional words of care. Each interaction was careful, polite, restrained. Yet Emily felt the pull of unspoken connection, the magnetism that was not physical but emotional. It's growing stronger with each passing moment. One afternoon, as Emily organized old papers in the study, Michael appeared in the doorway, holding a box of old photographs. They exchanged a brief smile, acknowledging the shared history without words. The air between them seemed charged. Emily's thoughts wandered to the stormy night, to the quiet conversations, to the way he had made her feel understood and noticed. She realized that the emotional intensity they shared was not fleeting, it had left a mark. The next evening, Emily and Michael found themselves alone in the kitchen again. Rain tapped against the windows. She poured tea while he washed a few dishes, their movements slow and synchronized. Neither spoke much, but the silence was comfortable. Emily felt a growing awareness of the depth of her feelings, a mix of admiration, respect, and longing she struggled to define. Michael's presence was steady, calming, yet filled with unspoken emotion, as if he too felt the weight of what had passed and what might be possible. Later that night, Emily lay in bed, unable to sleep. She thought of Boston, of work, of the city lights, but her mind kept returning to Michael, to the quiet moments, to the rain, to the unspoken understanding they shared. She realized that infidelity is not always physical. It begins with attention, understanding, and emotional closeness that crosses boundaries without touch. She felt both frightened and exhilarated by the realization. The following morning, Emily helped her mother with breakfast. Michael appeared briefly, checking on them, his presence unobtrusive yet noticeable. The tension between them had not diminished. It had only become subtler, woven into the fabric of everyday life. Emily understood that they had entered a dangerous emotional territory, one that could not easily be undone. Over the next few days, they maintained a careful distance, speaking only when necessary, keeping their interactions polite and restrained. Yet each glance, each small gesture carried weight. Emily noticed the way Michael looked at her when he thought she wasn't paying attention. The subtle concern in his voice, the small acts of care that went beyond ordinary politeness. She knew he noticed her in ways no one else did. As the week progressed, Emily faced the reality of returning to Boston again. She felt a mix of relief and sadness, knowing that leaving might reduce the intensity of her feelings, but not erase them. The rain returned one evening, soft and steady. Emily stood by the window, watching the droplets blur the streetlights. Michael appeared beside her, silent, steady. The moment hung between them, heavy with unspoken emotion. "You'll be leaving soon," he said quietly. "Yes," she replied. "I'm glad you came," he said softly. "Your mother is too." Emily nodded, unable to respond more. Words seemed inadequate. The storm outside mirrored the storm within her heart. She realized she could not deny the impact of their time together, the depth of their emotional connection, and the complexity of the feelings it had stirred. As Emily packed her suitcase that night, she understood something profound. Distance might help, time might help, but the emotional bond, the unspoken longing, the connection born in quiet moments would remain. She had learned that infidelity does not always require a physical act. It begins with attention, care, and understanding that touches the heart and lingers long after the moment is past. Emily left Vermont the next morning with a heavy heart and a mind full of memories. The house, the rain, the quiet conversations, and Michael's presence had changed her. She knew that the bond they shared was delicate, complicated, and emotionally charged, yet it was a truth she could not ignore.